American sports sedans used to be about bravado, loud, brash, and allergic to subtlety. And now we have the Lucid Air. It's quiet, refined, yet blisteringly fast and so efficient that it makes the Nissan Leaf question its own life decisions. The Lucid Air represents the next era of American sports sedans. And that era begins with renting a desk at WeWork and binge reading Atomic Habits. Before we start today's video, my name is Andrew Lambrecht. I'm a project engineer here at Ever, and I'm also a contributor at Inside EVs and Business Insider covering electric cars. As a quick note on transparency, I was previously employed by Lucid Motors last summer as a charging validation engineering intern. I learned a tremendous amount of knowledge about electric car charging at Lucid, and I'm very grateful for my experience. But in today's video, I'm going to put on my hat of impartiality to discuss the Lucid Air, the good and the bad. So let's dive in. Now, a brief history of Lucid Motors. While Lucid Motors is a fresh-faced entrant in the automotive industry, the startup has actually been around since 2007. It was originally called Ativa, and it aimed to build battery packs for electric buses in China. In 2013, Ativa hired the Tesla Model S chief engineer, Peter Rawlinson, to serve as the firm's chief technical officer. By 2016, Ativa rebranded to become Lucid Motors and shared teasers of its upcoming high-performance electric sedan. Unfortunately, this sedan suffered numerous delays to market, but Lucid finally delivered the first Lucid Air Dream Edition in late 2021. The Dream Edition range debuted with 520 miles of EPA-rated range and 933 horsepower, making this the longest range EV ever to be rated by the EPA. Lucid later introduced more trims like the entry-level Pure model, which starts at $72,400, and the ultra high performance Sapphire version with 1,234 horsepower and a $250,000 price tag. In today's video, we'll focus on the Lucid Air Touring in the used context. This was a mid-spec model, and today you can find them for around $50,000 on the second-hand market. We'll explore this electric sedan and help you determine if it's a worthwhile option for 50 grand. Starting off, we have the exterior of the Lucid Air. Now, my general theme with Lucid Motors is that space and efficiency are probably the two most highly regarded aspects of the car, which we will see in a bit. As for the overall specs, the Lucid Air Touring weighs in at 5,016 pounds. This is by no means a light electric car, but one of its saving graces is its ultra aerodynamic design. The Lucid Air has a drag coefficient of 0.197, which actually makes it the most aerodynamic production car for sale in the United States. The Lucid Air is more aerodynamic than the Mercedes EQS and Tesla Model 3, yet it still has a length of 195.9 inches long, putting it around the size of the Tesla Model S. But as we'll see, this car has more space and more storage than all three of those cars. But the really interesting thing here is that at highway speeds, your weight doesn't really play a large role in how much range your car gets. The big factor is the aerodynamics. So in the Lucid Air's case, yeah, it is pretty heavy, but it's super aerodynamic, and that is great for getting a lot of range. This Lucid Air Touring uses a 92 kilowatt hour usable battery pack, and if we have the 19-inch wheels, you can get 425 miles of EPA range, and with these 20-inch wheels, that range gets cut down to around 384. There is one asterisk though, and that is that the EPA numbers for the Lucid Airs tend to be pretty overestimated. So a lot of independent range tests show that the Lucid Air doesn't quite get that 384 miles in real world driving. And I can second that in my driving of this Lucid Air Touring with a 384 mile EPA range. I've been getting more around 300 to 350 miles on a single charge. Still, the Lucid Air is an incredibly efficient EV, And there are many markers of that on the exterior. For instance, look at all these aerodynamic bits on the front of the car. So we have these air channels right above the headlights, and you can see the air will pass right through there to go more smoothly over the hood. And we also get these on the sides of the front bumpers. So this helps channel the air around the aero wheels. If you look at the front of the car, it looks like there's no front wipers, and that's because they're hidden. This piece of trim located at the top of the hood actually shields the windshield wipers to allow for uninterrupted airflow over the windshield. You find a lot of internal combustion engine and even some EVs out there that have no protection at all for these windshield wipers, and sometimes they're placed up pretty high on the hood and they are not very conducive for airflow. Around the sides and back of the Lucid Air, we get flush door handles that open up whenever the car is unlocked and aero wheels, but for the electric car industry, these are two pretty normal features. Around back, we get this nicely molded ducktail spoiler, a massive LED light bar that encompasses the width of the car, and there's a small badge towards the back of the vehicle that says Air Touring. This is a way to tell what trim a specific Lucid Air is by looking here. This particular one's a Touring, so obviously it says Touring. To open up the trunk, there is a small button located underneath here, and the trunk opens up automatically. And now this is where things start to shine on the Lucid Air. This is a massive trunk. We get 22.1 cubic feet of cargo volume. For comparison, the Mercedes S-Class, which is a foot longer, only offers 12.9 cubic feet. So it's a foot longer, yet it offers around 9 fewer cubic feet of storage. The Porsche Taycan offers 14.3 cubic feet of cargo space in the trunk, and this really shows that the Lucid Air is very space efficient. Now, there are some benefits to this car being a trunk as opposed to a liftback. When the Lucid Air was originally designed, they wanted to keep this car as quiet as possible. And if you have a liftback, there's a lot of exposed volume on the inside of the car. So if there is a little bump on the rear suspension, that can permeate throughout the entirety of the cabin. And when you have this trunk that's coated in carpet, that means if you go over a bump, a lot of these noises or vibrations can be isolated to the trunk. But the Lucid Air has a lot more cargo space to offer than just the rear trunk. Up front, we not only get a power-operated front trunk, but we also get 10 additional cubic feet of storage space in this frunk area. That delivers 32.1 cubic feet of total storage space between the front and the back trunk. That's pretty impressive. For comparison, the Porsche Taycan's total storage space between its frunk and trunk is 17.3 cubic feet, and the Tesla Model S is 28.1. So despite the Lucid Air having a trunk as opposed to a liftback, it still has more total cargo volume than the Tesla Model S. To get inside the Lucid Air, you simply open up the retractable door handle and the door opens up. Now, this specific Lucid Air Touring has the soft close doors. Now this feature comes as part of the comfort and convenience package, which is around $3,000. So not all Lucid Airs have these, but most 2023 Tourings do. So open up and then you can get inside. In the back seats, we get a ton of space. The really interesting thing about these back seats is that the battery pack was actually molded to have more space for the passengers. And what that means is we have some battery modules actually underneath these seats and underneath the driver and passenger seat, as opposed to a totally flat battery pack. So this battery pack is effectively made to have some more space for the passengers. And this is really good because we don't get that seating angle that you get in a lot of electric sedans. So if you're in a Tesla Model 3, Model S, you will sit more like this in the back seats because the battery pack is so high up. But in here, we actually get a really comfortable seating position in the Lucid Air. This seating position is also quite good for the middle seat. So I'm sitting in the middle seat right now. We have a pretty much flat floor area and there's a lot of space back here. This has to be one of the most spacious middle seats in any sedan I've been in recently. This particular Air has the Mojave leather interior, which was actually made after the colors in the nighttime sky in the Mojave Desert, or just gray. These seats are perforated and all three of these seats are heated. So there are no ventilated seats back here, but you do get heated seats. We also have a center armrest with two cup holders. and a really nice little storage area back here. We also have a pass-through to the rear cargo area. So if you have long items you need to store, or if you just want to grab something in the trunk, you can do that in the air. The back seats also have some pretty cool amenities. So we do get sunshades on the side windows and even on the rear windows. So you simply pull up on this little window switch and then the sunshade will rise. We also get this center display with a 4-zone climate control. So 2 zones up front, 2 zones in the back, and this works pretty well. You can also control the rear sunshade from this center screen. Below the center screen, there is a small storage area with 2 USB-C ports. We get premium feeling seat back pockets, and all the materials on the backs of the front seats are really good. So we get soft touch all around and this nice fabric material. These seats feel very premium. The materials are quite impressive even on the back seats as well. For instance, this whole door panel is pretty much entirely composed of soft touch materials. The only plastics are for, well, the door handle, which kind of sucks, and this little speaker grill. But other than that, everything else feels really good. Soft touch, probably leather, more soft touch all the way down here. And the inside of these door pockets are felt lined. So if you have stuff sitting in there, they're not going to be making a bunch of noise when you're driving around. Pretty impressive. Up front, we still get plenty of space. So I have these seats relatively far back, and as we could see in the back seats, there was plenty of space back there, and I still have plenty of space up here. And as you'll notice, we do not have the glass canopy in this Lucid Air. This was a $4,500 option when the car was new, and this just has the regular aluminum roof. We do get really nice Alcantara headliner, and it feels quite nice. But one note on the glass canopy is that it does get super hot in the summer, and this air conditioner doesn't really compensate for the additional heat that we get on the inside. So the cabin is really hot, and you'll need to precondition your car for like 20 minutes just to get the climate to a tolerable temperature. So if you do live in a hot environment, I really recommend to just get the aluminum roof. Otherwise, we get 14-way power adjustable heated and ventilated seats. They're very comfortable. Now, these aren't the massaging seats you get on higher trim level Lucid Airs, but they're still pretty comfortable. We also get a USB-C port, a USB-A port, 2 wireless phone chargers, and 2 cup holders in this center console area. As for the sound system, this Lucid Air has the Surreal Sound Pro audio. You could either get Surreal Sound or Surreal Sound Pro, and I think there's a pretty big difference between Surreal Sound and Surreal Sound Pro. Now, even Surreal Sound Pro isn't like a particularly amazing sound system, but it does have a lot more depth and clarity than the base one. The Lucid Gravity has tons of audio improvements over the Air. Up front, we have a really nice driving position of the Lucid Air, and we have this massive wraparound screen. We'll get to the software in a bit, but I will say this is very nicely laid out. One thing I don't really love is this armrest. It doesn't really come out that far, so when you are driving, your elbow is kind of at the tip of it, and it just feels a little awkward. It's kind of like Blackstone buying up all the single-family homes. What isn't awkward, however, is all the storage we get up front. So we have these massive door pockets on the doors, and the center screen you can actually push up, and the screen will disappear to reveal a lot of storage area. We also get more storage underneath the center armrest too. So as for storage, you got a lot to work with in the Lucid Air. As for the software, the Lucid Air is pretty good. Now, I want to preface this. I do not think the Lucid Air is quite on Tesla or Rivian level in terms of software, but we have some decent functionality. So first off, we have our climate control menu right here, so we can easily choose our temperature or fan speed, and then we can also adjust the rear climate controls as well. Our heated and ventilated seats are located right there, and as we mentioned earlier, you can swipe up and the center screen will disappear, and then you bring it back just by swiping there. We have some basic car functionality on this little car page, and here we can adjust the steering wheel, mirrors, and then we can also change the drive mode. So we have smooth, swift, and sprint. What's really interesting about these modes is it's pretty much like eco, normal, and then sport. These really adjust the throttle tuning, maximum power output, and also the dampers. To open the glove box, we simply press the glove box button, and then it will open up. And this actually has a really nice fabric material on the outside. And I guess I went a little ahead of myself because the materials up front are still really impressive. We also get some themes, and this adjusts the ambient lighting. It's not really that impressive. It's not like the Mercedes EQS where you just feel inundated by lights, but you know, you have a few like escape, space, solitude, wonder. I feel like I'm in some sort of healing crystal convention right now, so we're gonna move off of that menu. And then we also have charging. So here we can set the charging limit, so we can push this down to 80% for our daily driving. And when you are charging, we do have the current limiter too, which is really nice. So if you're at an older house and you don't want to risk sending too much current through the older breakers, then you can limit the current. What's also really cool is that this goes up to 80 amps. So the Lucid Air, all of them can charge at 19.2 kilowatts, which is really impressive. We'll get to the charging in a little bit, but overall that is a really impressive level 2 charging rate. If you press this button right here with a little parking symbol, we can pull up our 360 camera, and then this top camera can also be used for front and rear views as well. You can also change it to wide angle, but this lower view is really cool because we get a 3D visualizer of our car that is color matched with the right wheels. So Kia, Porsche, and Hyundai are incapable of doing this, but Lucid is, so good on them. And we can see our little 3D world that our Lucid Air is in. If we turn the steering wheel, well, I guess I'm not in drive right now. So, by the way, to put the car into drive or reverse, it's very similar to the Tesla. So you just push down for drive, up for reverse. And anyways, when you do that, then we can see our lines where our wheels are going to end up if we start driving. And overall, I think this is a really solid surround view camera system. And the attention to detail is pretty good. So if I put on my blinker, we can see it in that little 3D model. Moving north like a bird in the springtime, we have our map. And if we pull up this little menu right here, we can type in where we want to go to. So I recently just typed in San Diego. So we can click on San Diego and then we can calculate our route there. So we press go. And then we will get our route calculated from San Francisco to San Diego. So we just give it a little bit of time. And then we get our route. It shows us all our charging stops we need to make. So if we scroll down here, we can see that we have an Electrify America charging stop at 1:44 p.m. and we see exactly how much time we need to spend there, and then we can continue on our trip. Overall, this route planner works pretty well, and if you want to, you can use Apple CarPlay with PlugShare, but I think this built-in system works well enough. Just one slight complaint though is I think this 2023 is pretty underpowered. We can see with this zooming in and out action that it is a little laggy. Now the 2025 does have a beefier onboard processor, so if you do get a 2025 Lucid, you'll notice that the visualizations and all that jazz are a lot better. But one really cool thing is you can actually send this map back up to the top and then you can drag it down. So that's kind of cool if you're into that. We also get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which are two really nice things to have. Very few electric vehicles from newer automakers offer Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so Rivian and Tesla do not. So if you want that functionality, you're more than welcome to use those two features, and they're wireless, which is pretty nice. But before we leave this center area and head over to the driver gauge cluster, we do have physical buttons. So if we want to adjust our temperature, we can easily press up and down, and then our volume as well can also be adjusted through here. Now these buttons don't feel like particularly amazing. There's actually a little bit of play, which I don't love, but this is nice at least to have these physical buttons just to easily adjust the climate control without having to go through this center screen. And the volume knob is also a very nice touch. This center display is pretty minimalist. We have our power cluster right there where we can see the power going out or coming into the battery pack through regen. We also get our battery percentage, a speed limit, we have our odometer, and then our distance since last charge. It's pretty minimalist, nothing too crazy. And then over to the right, we get a few things. We can open up the charge port, open up the front trunk, lock or unlock the car, and then we have our wiper settings along with our headlights and front and rear defoggers. A lot of cars typically have all these actions kind of embedded into the blinker stock, but on the Lucid Air, we have these all as buttons we can pretty easily access. As for the steering wheel, we can set our speed with this left stick right here. You can increase or decrease the speed. We also have our Dream Drive Pro settings right here. So if we press and hold, we can activate it. This adjusts our adaptive cruise control car length settings, and then we can also turn it off with this X button right here. We have our previous and next track for audio, and then located right here is our volume knob. I will say the steering wheel feels quite good, though these knobs feel a little on the cheaper side. So if these were made out of aluminum and not plastic, I think they would feel a lot more premium. When it comes time to charge the Lucid Air, we got our charge port located here on the quarter panel, and it gracefully opens up. The Lucid Air is capable of doing 19.2 kilowatts on level 2 charging, which is really class leading. Very few EVs out there can do 19.2 kilowatts on level 2. So if you do have an 80 amp charger, you can charge this Lucid Air at about 80 miles of range per hour, which is really impressive for level 2 charging. As for DC fast charging, this Lucid Air has a peak of around 200 kilowatts, and we can charge from 10 to 80% in around 30 minutes. This isn't really revolutionary numbers, especially for an 800 volt EV, but nevertheless, it can charge pretty quickly from 10 to 80%. For comparison, the Porsche Taycan and Kia EV6, which are also 800 volt EVs, can go from 10 to 80% in only around 18 minutes. So they can actually charge a good bit quicker than the Air Touring. But the really cool thing about the Lucid Air is its Wonder Box. And the Wonder Box is basically the integrated power control unit for all the power flowing out or into the Lucid Air's battery pack. This Wonder Box is also the brains behind V2V charging for the Lucid Air. So last summer, Lucid released an update where all Lucid Airs could charge other EVs using a V2V cable. So you can plug in the V2V cable to the Lucid Air and then into another EV that needs a charge. And the Lucid Air can offload 9.6 kilowatts of power. So you can level 2 charge another EV from your Lucid Air. That's pretty sweet. The Wonder Box can also do DC boost charging. So say you're at a version 3 supercharger or some older electric car charger that cannot supply enough volts to match the battery pack. So this battery pack's 800 volts, and some older chargers out there may only be able to do 480 volts. That means you need some onboard hardware to step up the voltage to match that of the battery pack, and that's what the Wonder Box does. If you plug in a Lucid Air to an older Tesla supercharger through an adapter, this car is capable of charging, though the charge rate will be limited to around 50 kilowatts. So this should mainly only be used in a pinch, or maybe if you're doing a road trip and you're planning on stopping for an hour or two. So not very fast boost charging, but if you do need it, you are capable of charging on older Tesla supercharger. But now let's get the Lucid Air out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the Lucid Air. Let's give this some juice. It's quick. So this Lucid Air makes 620 horsepower and weighs around 5,000 pounds. So this is a pretty heavy car. However, I think the suspension on here works wonders, because especially when I'm kind of pushing it around some of these coastal California roads, it really does not feel that heavy. And obviously we have a bunch of power, so when you exit these corners, it really feels great. The steering feel in here is very natural. I think the steering is actually a lot better than most EVs on the road. I will say, like the BMW i4, which I love, I think the car's great. The steering is a little numb in there. And then you get in some Teslas, and I think the steering is too sensitive. And the Lucid Air is honestly a really nice middle ground. Is it quite up to the level as the Porsche Taycan? I don't know. I think it's pretty close though, because this is just a really good feeling steering wheel. We also get launch control on the Lucid Air, which is pretty cool. And then you let go and wow, that is fast. That is a very brutal launch. So yeah, this car is really quick. And what's really fun about the Lucid Air, and I really like this for Lucid just being a little bit more of a playful, fun performance brand, is the fact that all Lucid Airs, even the pure rear wheel drive, has this launch mode, and that's pretty cool. So in Lucid Air, you got the launch mode, and you can also really dial off the traction control. So when you put this car in traction off, it is really traction off, and this thing can be a tremendous amount of fun. You can drift it. I've seen this on some of the test tracks, and it's really cool. The Lucid Air is a very playful car. Way more playful, I would say, than even the Porsche Taycan, because in the Porsche Taycan, when you turn PASM off, it really doesn't let the tires chirp that much. In the Lucid Air, you can really get the tires to chirp even when you have it on the mid partial setting of traction control. So I respect that. This car does not have air suspension, and this is kind of a cool thing. So the Lucid Air does have adaptive dampers, so depending on your drive mode, it does change up the way the car feels, but no air suspension in the Air. A little ironic, and this might be a good thing because air suspension tends to be a somewhat unreliable component on a lot of these luxury cars, and on the Lucid Air, we just have regular steel springs and adaptive dampers, so that's good. Between the traction control, which can be really turned off, the great feeling accelerator pedal, which is very responsive, the handling and the steering feel, the Lucid Air has got to be one of the best driving electric cars on the market. The Lucid Air also has one pedal driving, and it's very well calibrated from my experience. The accelerator pedal also feels really good, and there's lots of customization with this feature. So you can turn creep on and off, and creep mode basically lets the car creep forward when you put it into drive, or you turn it off. I prefer it off. And with one pedal driving, you can turn it completely off, or you can have it on. So there's just a lot of customization with this, and that's what really makes a Lucid Air nice. There's so much you can do to change the driving experience. So you can drive in smooth mode and the car will be very comfortable, or you can throw it into sprint mode and turn off traction control, and this thing is like really one of the most fun to drive, probably even cars on the road. And when you get into some other EVs like the Porsche Taycan, it's like, hey, there's no one pedal driving in this car. There's like very little customization. But in the Lucid Air, you can do a lot to really change how the way this car drives. And especially if you're buying new, I don't really see a reason to get like a Tesla Model S over the Lucid Air. Maybe you really want the free supercharging you get with it, but this Lucid Air, at least in terms of the raw driving experience, is so much better than I'd say 90% of the other EVs out there. This is a really, really good car to drive. The Air also has some really ample passing power. So like right now we're at around 50 miles per hour and I floor it. Wow, still very quick. It doesn't really taper off when you get up into higher speeds. Now, since we're on the highway, let's check out Dream Drive Pro. So I just set it on, and now I can take my hands off the wheel, and the car is handling all the driving functionality on the highway. This can actually make automated lane changes, so I simply put on my blinker, and the car will change lanes for me. Very nice feature to have. After having driven with Dream Drive Pro pretty frequently, I gotta say it's a pretty solid system. It's definitely not to the level of Tesla FSD, where it can do a lot more than just highway driving, but at least for highway driving, and my commute's around 25 miles, so I do drive a lot on the highway, this car really alleviates a lot of the stress. It's a very good system, and the hands-free attributes are really nice. So it's not like those systems where it's like, put your hands on the wheel, and you keep having to do it every 10 seconds. This, I can just take my hands off and let the car do all the driving for me. But now, Dream Drive Pro, when this car was made, was a $10,000 option. Now it costs $6,750. And the way to tell is you'll see a little camera on the B-pillar. So if you're trying to buy a Lucid Air and you don't know if it has Dream Drive Pro, simply look at the B-pillar. If it has a camera, then yes, it has Dream Drive Pro. After having driven with a lot of different autonomous driving features from a variety of brands, I gotta say that this is a very smooth system. I haven't had it make any mistakes yet, and I've driven a lot on the highway with this, so I'm pretty impressed. And since we're on the highway, I guess we should talk about the overall quietness and ride quality, and it's really, really good. It's very surprising this car doesn't have air suspension based on how smooth it is over bumps, yet the Lucid Air is fine without it. There's very little wind noise inside the cabin in here, and it just feels very muted. It's a very nice place to be on the highway, very quiet ride, very comfortable, but as we saw earlier, you can throw this thing into sprint mode and it's a lot of fun. I think the most impressive thing about the Lucid Air is how it can be so playful on curvy roads and yet so subdued and relaxed on highway driving. This car really does pretty much everything I want it to do. It's fun, but yet also very comfortable when you want it to be. The driving experience in the Lucid Air is truly top-notch. And that's the Lucid Air. Before we go any further, what trim do we recommend? Well, this particular one, the Lucid Air Touring, seems to be the best value right now. There are some Pures you can find in the low $40,000 range, but most of them don't have all the features this Touring does. We get 620 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and we also get ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, heated rear seats, the sunshades, soft closing doors, and many more amenities. This particular one has Surreal Sound Pro and Dream Drive Pro, which are really nice amenities to have. If you'd really like the top dog, you can probably find a Grand Touring, perhaps with the glass canopy, in the upper $50,000 range, but I really think the Touring like this one is the sweet spot. The Lucid Air is evidence that great driving dynamics, 600 horsepower, and incredible efficiency aren't mutually exclusive. The Lucid Air is everything American cars never were, and maybe everything they should become. If you enjoyed today's video, I recommend inviting all your friends over to your house to watch Ever's YouTube videos together, or you can just hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.